To the Lake District now, where our plant expert James Wong has been to see a new garden that takes its inspiration from a literary legend.
The tales of Peter Rabbit and his friends have for more than a century captured the imagination of children all over the world. They've sold more than 40 million copies and have been reproduced in 35 languages.
And it was right here in this area of the Lake District that author and illustrator Beatrix Potter drew inspiration from the landscape around her to produce some of the world's most popular childhood tales.
Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter.
Beatrix was born in London into a wealthy Victorian family in 1866. She spent the early part of her life studying the natural world, and particularly the emerging science of botany. So it's no surprise that when she started writing her children's books, that the plant and animal kingdoms were at the heart of them. This love affair with nature started in the lakes.
Our first experience of this part of the world was on holiday, so it was a sense of freedom and escape from the nursery and the kind of restrictions of London and out into this wonderful landscape, and it really inspired her both on the natural world and to inspire her to paint and create.
And you can really see that sense of escapism and romanticism just coming through the pages of her books.
Yeah, but there was also an interest in science, in researching the reproduction of fungi. So her original paintings were of very beautiful, detailed illustration of fungi, and she cracked the whole puzzle of how fungi reproduce. And in fact, she had a knockback from the establishment, and so she decided that she would divert into commercial painting and books inspired by this landscape.
So not only a true scientist at heart, but she was actually one of the leaders of conservation of the era.
Yes, actually a family friend of the Potters was Canon Rawnsley, who founded the National Trust. So from a very young age, she knew all about the National Trust and what was being done. And eventually, the money that came in from these little books started to buy her own home here in the Lake District, Hilltop. And then she kept buying land and farms and historic buildings, really to preserve them for the future.
So why have you decided at this point in time to capture all of the spirit of her books in the frame of a garden?
Well, this year is the centenary of the Tale of the Flopsy Bunnies, which is the last of the Peter Rabbit stories, and it's really set in a garden. I think they're her best illustrations, and it seemed a perfect time to introduce a garden into the attraction and inspire young children with that whole magic of vegetables and gardens and the romance of it. And who knows, we might inspire the next generation of children's authors.
The garden's been inspired by the illustrations in her books. It's grown on organic principles and showcases wherever possible the exact plant varieties that would have been around when Beatrix was writing more than a century ago.
Richard, I'm a garden designer myself, and I've got to say this is looking absolutely brilliant. How have you managed to capture so realistically all the bits and pieces of Beatrix Potter's stories together?
Well, the first thing I've done is actually read the books and looked at all the illustrations, and then from a design point of view, I've used a technique where I divide all the garden up to have as many small, interesting areas as possible. So that although the site is quite small, we've actually got lots of little places, lots of nooks and crannies.
And that's what I really love about this garden, little nooks and crannies of tiny pots and empty snail shells on corners, and even weeds mixed up with the planting stuck in the cracks in the pavement. Such an original idea. Where do you get weed species like that to plant?
Well, some of the weeds came off my allotments at home, and others were contract grown for us, specifically for this project. The snail shells came from my garden at home too, and that's a touch I really love because it puts a smile on people's faces.
That's exactly it, and exactly the kind of thing kids would love. I love the reclaimed oak timbers, and it just looks like the ears of the bunny rabbit, so it's a real iconic feature that pop up through the books, and you can imagine kids just sticking their faces between. I've noticed there's a really nice combination between ornamental things and more edible, useful things, which really ties in with gardens of the period.
This area of the garden is more the veg patch. We've got cabbages, cos lettuce, parsley, and more lettuce as well. The cos lettuce, it's actually a variety called Paris White, and it dates from the 1840s.
Can you tell that from the picture?
No, we can tell it's cos lettuce.
Okay.
But we can't tell it's that actual variety.
I love the fact that you've sourced plants from the original dates. It makes the garden so much more than something that's just pretty, but actually something that's almost like a living museum.
Richard and I are off to a local nursery to collect another batch of vegetables that are ready for planting.
Is this all for you?
That's it, James, yeah.
Wow, look at that.
Peter Rabbit radishes.
I like that. Is that the official name, Peter Rabbit radishes?
That's the name I'm giving them.
Okay, okay.
Well, we'll start with some parsley and then we'll get some broad beans.
Brilliant.
That'd be great.
Brilliant.
All looks about right now.
Looks like that's it.
Some rounds here.
Let me know where you'd like these to go. Are we going in there?
Yeah, we're going here. And what we'll do is we'll put them in a row down the middle.
Okay. So what do you think Beatrix would think of your garden?
I think she'd like it. I think she'd be proud of it. So, and I think she'd like the fact that it was being maintained on organic principles as well.
And you think walking around it, you can definitely see some little snapshots of her book.
From planting to materials, it's clear to see how the illustrations of Beatrix Potter have been brought to life in this garden, and the attention to detail is enchanting.
It really seems to me like things have come full circle here, with the books by Beatrix Potter capturing the essence of the landscape, and well, for now, this little bit of landscape at least, trying to capture the feeling and essence of her books. I can't wait to come back and see it in full bloom.